The Forbidden Labyrinth is a perilous place that only powerful S-rank adventurers can enter. It has long been the final resting place of many eager adventurers, and it is considered by many as the final test of one's ability. It is known by another name, the Abyss. Those who enter it are likely to never see the light of day again. A few days prior, the S-rank party future plan was busy offloading their supplies. Holland learns that one of the new members, Kraha, is being picked on by Godech. When Holland investigates the altercation, he discovers a mercenary, Jiro, already trying to get him to cool off. Jiro has largely kept silent because of his status as a newbie, but he won't ignore something as childish as bullying happening before his very eyes. Kraha tries to tell Jiro that she has no issues, but Jiro sure does. He signed a contract to assist future plan, but that doesn't include agreeing with their methods. He reminds Godech that they're about to challenge the hardest labyrinth in the whole country, and it'd be silly to carry such an immature attitude into such a dangerous place. Godech glares at him for a moment before storming off, but he makes it clear that he won't tolerate any disobedience once inside the abyss. Kraha thanks Jiro for standing up for her, and they both board the same carriage. Kraha asks Jiro about his background as a swordsman prodigy, but he downplays his skill. Though there are reports of him slaying a dragon, Jiro reveals that he defeated it with his master. He's traveling the country now so that he can defeat one on his own. The carriage suddenly runs into a rough patch, throwing Jiro to the floor, but Kraha is fine. Kraha asks Jiro for advice on how to get stronger, even though it seems a little impossible for her. She reveals that she's always loved and admired heroic tales, so she's been diligently studying how to go on adventures. Now that she's old enough and capable enough to be an adventurer, the next step is to improve her combat abilities. It takes more than being able to read a map to be an adventurer, and even though she wants to learn how to fight, nobody is willing to teach her. She originally joined Future Plan because there was an advancement program that promised to eventually promote you from a support role to a frontline role, but there was no proper training program in place. Jiro realizes that this must be why he was brought in as extra muscle, though it isn't exactly a method he agrees with. Jiro asks her what she'd do in an encounter with a wolf, and she replies that she'd try to aim for a counterattack. However, Jiro says that she's better off anticipating the attack in advance and laying a trap. Jiro is a firm believer that there is not a single correct way to fight, and that everyone should make the best use of the tools available to them. Having plenty of cards to play means that you have way more options. In short, training, experience, and knowledge will increase her overall strength. Kraha asks Jiro if he's some sort of master tactician, and he replies that he's just kind of pulling these things out of the air. In the end, Jiro is just a swordsman, so the only card he holds is brute strength. Jiro also reveals that his eyesight is poor, the result of a curse when he killed a dragon with his master. The only enhancements he can receive are physical ones. He has extreme difficulty discerning things like traps in a labyrinth. However, there's something much worse than that curse. Jiro has an abysmal sense of direction, the likes of which rivals another certain green-haired swordsman. Before coming to Future Plan, Jiro almost walked in the opposite direction towards another country. If he lost his glasses inside the labyrinth, he'd probably die. As a symbol of his trust, Jiro gives Kraha his spare glasses. If he loses them, it'd really be over for him. When they arrive at the labyrinth, they disembark. Jiro offers to teach Kraha some basic swordsmanship, but only if she's okay with a non-master like him. He can't teach her any secret techniques, but just the basics. Despite this, she wholeheartedly accepts. They shake on it, forming a simple promise. However, 2 hours later, Jiro would find himself all alone in the middle of a labyrinth with his glasses smashed. The labyrinth raid of the abyss was going well. Nobody had ever made it past the 3rd floor before, but Future Plan was blazing past everything the dungeon could throw at it. However, everything changed, not when the Fire Nation attacked, but when they encountered the 3rd floor boss. Floor bosses exist on every floor, blessed with extraordinary magic by the labyrinth itself. Unlike regular monsters, they reside in places called boss chambers. Normally, boss rooms can be avoided by finding a separate route to the next floor, but the 3rd floor is an exception. Jiro was the first to charge in, executing a one-striker formation. This is designed for Jiro to take in all the aggro himself, and he has no problems with the plan. It makes for good exercise. However, he noticed that he wasn't receiving any logistical support at all, so when he looked behind him to see what was going on, he spotted Godech readying his signature blade, Vanish. It makes sense for the leader to deal a strong, decisive blow, but to Jiro's horror, Godech does not wait for him to get out of the way. Jiro is caught in Godech's attack, a flash of patch black darkness. Jiro had no time to avoid it. The floor boss meets the attack head-on, causing a massive cave-in. Jiro plummets as the floor below him gives way, and he's joined by his old friend, the floor boss. The floor boss directly goes for Jiro's head, prompting him to muster every bit of courage and guts to try and defeat it. And that's exactly what Jiro did. Jiro emerged triumphant, but he now finds himself deep within the labyrinth system. Jiro looks up at the hole he fell from, which appears far too distant to try and climb to. Jiro processes what just happened to him, and he trembles with anger. He surmises that Godech chose not to warn him simply because of the altercation they had earlier, and Jiro swears not to rest until he beats him black and blue when he gets out. However, that's his first issue. How in the world is he going to get out of here? He pins his hopes on some friendly faces within Future Plan to help him, but all he can think of is Kraha. He hopes that she can lower a rope to bring him back up, so he can slug Godech in the face. Unfortunately for him, He might not get that chance. The ceiling, which appears to be a mass of flesh and soft tissue, begins sealing itself. Still, Jiro remains optimistic. As long as he has his glasses, he'll be able to find a way out eventually. His glasses crumble in his hands, and with it, his final hope of navigating his way out of the labyrinth. Meanwhile, on the third floor, Kra watches in stunned silence at the spot where Jiro used to be, remembering the promise they made together. Godich heartlessly brands this an unfortunate accident, and deeming it too dangerous to continue, he orders a retreat. Kraha asks Godich if he intends to abandon Jiro, and she goes as far as accusing him of attacking him on purpose. Godich grabs Kraha's neck and slams her against the wall. Godich makes no effort to conceal his intentions, and she dares Kraha to just try doing something about it. Kraha clears her throat and threatens to report him to the guild. She points out that attacking another member from behind is against guild laws and that, as commander, he is responsible for any injuries that happen on his watch. Kraha states that there are many witnesses here who will join her, and Godich asks her to point them out. Kraha looks around her, and to her horror, every adventurer present agrees to remain silent about what happened. As far as Godich is concerned, Kraha is just a useless guild member throwing around baseless accusations with no proof. He commands the remaining adventurers to follow him and withdraw, leaving Kraha kneeling on the ground. Kraha was completely and utterly powerless to do anything to oppose Godich, even though she reached out her hand to try and help Jiro. Holland bends down and helps Kraha up, encouraging her to continue on. Kraha asks him why the others sided with Godich, and he explains that it was only natural for them to do so. For many of them, Godich is the end-all be-all. Future Plan is the only S-rank party in the country, and if they get on Godich's bad side, they can kiss their careers goodbye. That's the only reason. Holland has to do it too, since he has a family to support. Kraha feels as though she can't just lead Jiro to die, but Holland tries to get her to be realistic. As she is right now, she isn't capable enough to mount a rescue operation on her own. He isn't telling her not to rescue Jiro. He just wants her to accept that this is the way things work for now. This is just how being an adventurer is, and she just happened to witness it firsthand. Kraha bitterly mutters that she didn't become an adventurer just for this, and Holland feels the need to apologize to her. He just hopes that she can learn a thing or two from him. Upon returning to Future Plan's lodgings, Kraha did not resign. She hated Future Plan, but she knew that if she quit, she'd have no chance of descending into the abyss again. 3 months later, Kraha runs her usual jogging trail, which leads her to the entrance of the abyss. She hopes that, one day, she can make it to the deepest level and bring Jiro back alive. She doesn't care if all she can bring back are his broken bones. On the way back, Kraha spots a carriage and a large battalion of holy knights. Kraha finds this strange. Holy knights usually only make an appearance to perform sealing activities, and she wonders if something big is happening. Suddenly, a girl walks right past Kraha, whom she overhears is the saint. Upon hearing that this girl is the saint, Kraha recalls all the times that Future Plan told her to give up on trying to rescue Jiro, but she also remembers Jiro telling her to keep in mind the cards that she holds. Kraha is useless as she is now, but she wants to change that, so she approaches the saint with determination. She will rescue Jiro at all costs. Meanwhile, Jiro defends himself against a pack of hellhounds using nothing but his bare fists. He has gone largely feral, exhibiting gorilla-like or football fan tendencies, such as beating his own chest. Jiro, realizing that he was acting like a caveman, returns to his senses, and he takes a deep breath. It's been 3 months since the cave-in incident, and Jiro is approaching his mental and physical limits. He's been living on nothing but disgusting fish, and while chewing through one, he bites into a hard crystal. Jiro is ecstatic, and he shows it to his wooden board friend Gadachi. Jiro realizes that he was acting a bit hysterical again. He fears that if things go on like this for much longer, he'll go insane. Or rather, he's already gone insane. Afraid of how bad things might get, Jiro finally resolves to try and walk back to the surface. After putting on his garb, he says a tearful goodbye to Gadachi, his one and only friend. Gadachi has seen terrible, terrible things. Jiro starts marching up the slope towards the surface. He once read a book about the 2 types of people who are directionally challenged. The first are idiots who recklessly head down in any direction without thinking, and the second are individuals who continuously second-guess themselves into getting lost. Jiro is the second type. Jiro recalls his training with his master, who often made fun of his indecisiveness. Jiro resolves to break that cycle here, reassuring himself that he's on the right path. Or is he? Jiro suddenly stops upon noticing that he is no longer going up a slope, and he wonders if this was just his imagination. He decides to take a step further, and he ends up stepping on a trap. Even though Jiro thinks he's the second type of directionally challenged person, he is undoubtedly the first. He is a massive idiot, easily caught in traps. He accidentally triggers a giant tsunami, sweeping him away to parts unknown. Jiro spits out the water in his mouth and staggers to his feet. He assumes that this was all some sort of clever trick meant to bring him to this area, as he senses a monster in front of him. Jiro swings his sword, only to end up hitting a blade of grass. Through his blurry vision, he makes out the image of a young girl, the saint. The pair make eye contact, though Jiro has to rub his eyes to make sure that what he just saw was a person. The saint reassures Jiro that she is, indeed, a person, but this raises more questions than answers. Jiro apologizes to her and explains that he lost his glasses. The saint does what any person would do. Asks Jiro to count how many fingers she is holding up. Jiro replies, 38, indicating just how bad his eyesight is. However, Jiro is still cautious about the situation he's found himself in. He finds it highly unlikely that a human would be waiting at the endo trap. It's far more likely that a monster would be. Just as Jiro suspected, a massive crab claws its way out, ready to exact revenge for his brethren who died in boiling pots of water. Jiro is greatly relieved that it was a monster all along, which is a strange thing to be relieved about. Jiro looks up and sees that the giant enemy crab is about to attack the girl, so he draws his sword and performs one of the secret sword arts at his disposal, Moon Dream. In one move, Jiro cleaves the gigantic crab in half, but the momentum carries him forward into the shallow pool. The girl hurriedly walks over to Jiro, who is overjoyed to see that she really is a human being. The saint wonders if she should report him somehow. The girl dips her hands into the water and discovers some engraved grooves in the stone, which she presumes to be part of a magic circle. She asks Jiro what he thinks, and he replies that he's just a simple swordsman who lacks the education for this. The saint looks toward the ceiling, and she guesses that the magic circle is how she ended up here. Jiro asks if she is here to conquer the labyrinth, and she replies that she was expressly brought here by the church for that purpose. She wandered around before inadvertently ending up here. Jiro, who was stabbed in the back by his allies, sees her as a kindred spirit, though she makes it clear that their situations are a little different. She deduces that she must have stepped on a teleportation trap of sorts. The knights that were escorting her were very capable, and they even managed to usher her all the way into the 4th floor. However, once there, she began to feel very sluggish until she was whisked away to this room by the trap. Jiro asks her if she is an adventurer, but the girl suddenly clams up, wondering if it is okay to tell someone like him. Deciding for herself that she can, she reveals that she was sent here to investigate the dungeon. Every single one of the church leaders has felt an ominous atmosphere permeating throughout the entire labyrinth. She didn't notice because she was struggling with a stomach ache. Upon learning that she is affiliated with the church, Jiro musters the courage to ask her if she'd be kind enough to cast some sanitation magic on him, given that he currently has the hygiene of a Discord moderator. The girl smiles. She was avoiding broaching the subject, but Jiro certainly smells like the sludge from a drainage ditch. Still, she tells him not to worry about it. Anyone would smell like that if they were wandering around such a place for so long. The girl taps her staff into the water, cleansing Jiro's physical and mental state. Jiro muses that if he had met this girl 3 days later, he would have been in a completely feral state, and she would have attacked him on sight. Jiro is back to his old self, and he thanks the girl for cleaning him. She notices that his eyes are cursed, and Jiro is surprised that she could tell. He wasn't trying to hide it, but he's nonetheless impressed that she spotted it. The girl is plenty impressed with Jiro as well. He managed to cut down the crab monster in a single strike, which tells her that he's much stronger than the holy knights accompanying her. Jiro gingerly touches the sword on his hip, remarking that it's the only thing he can rely on. Without a word, and before the girl can even react, Jiro strikes at 2 sea serpents poised to attack her. Jiro suggests that they change locations so that they can talk without a fish monster trying to eat them every 15 seconds. Jiro leads her towards his camp, boasting that he knows where it is and that it isn't more than 5 minutes away. They end up taking 5 whole hours to reach his camp. Their legs have been reduced to jelly, and Jiro can do little but apologize for the whole affair. The pair take a seat in front of a pond, and the girl finally introduces herself. Her name is Lily Lee, an affiliate of the church. She tells him to feel free to call her Lily, Lee, or Big Sis Lee. Despite appearances, Lily is actually older than 20 years old and Jiro is just 19. Realizing that she has seniority, Jiro sheepishly offers to start using formal language towards her, but she preferred if he didn't. Jiro wants to tell Lily all about how he ended up here, but she tells him there's no need. A certain gray-haired girl had already told her all about his circumstances. Jiro realizes that Kraha is still thinking about him after all this time. If he were in her position, she would have assumed that someone would be dead after 3 months in the abyss. It brings a tear to his eye. The fact that someone has been worrying about him all this time is enough. Lily asks him how he ended up this deep in, since they can't be any higher than the 4th floor. Jiro explains that he was knocked down to the very bottom of the labyrinth first, and that it was the result of Godetch attacking him. Since then, he's been trying to find a way back to the surface, but he never made it to his original form. He was very close to completely reverting to a caveman, and the next thing he knew, he was swept away by a waterfall, which brought him to her. Jiro thanks her for saving him from becoming a caveman, but she says that he's too thin to be a caveman. It's hard to bulk up when he can't get any protein powder or bench press in a dungeon. Setting aside the matter of his physical condition, Lily is upset over how Jiro ended up here, and she offers to accompany him back to the surface so they can confront Godetch. The only way is up, and Jiro is confident that he's at least made a fair bit of progress heading to the surface. He asks Lily if she's aware that there are floor bosses, and she replies that she is. Jiro tells her that he can't beat the one on this floor. Jiro has already found the path that leads to the next floor, but he simply can't defeat the monster in his way. It's far stronger than him. It isn't physically stronger. Its defenses are simply too hard, and Jiro sees no weak points he can exploit. If only Jiro had his glasses, he'd be able to defeat it. Probably. Jiro considers himself too weak. If he were strong enough, he could have just brute forced his way through the monster. That's why he's just been training around this waterhole for the past few months. Lily dips her hands into the water, which turns out to be a dark, opaque liquid. Whatever Jiro's been drinking, it isn't water. Lily makes a mental note to clean his stomach later. She decides to head to the boss's room at once, But when Jiro says that he isn't strong enough to defeat the boss, Lily offers to help him. She half-jokingly claims that she can make him the strongest caveman there is with a bit of enhancement magic, but Jiro tells her that such a thing would be pointless. He's been conserving his strength all his time. His power isn't the issue. The issue is his sword. Even if he had the strength of 1,000 men, his sword just wouldn't be able to take it. Lily is a bit surprised, since she thought that Jiro was already leagues above the Holy Knights. Jiro likes having an extra sword on hand in case it breaks, but he wouldn't have this problem in the first place if he just had his glasses. Lily asks him how many times he'd need to attack the floor boss's weak point, and he replies that he only needs to attack once. He needs no second strike. Lily is surprised by how confident he is. Jiro is only that confident because he knows he can pull it off. Still, even if he manages to pull this off, he'll be left without a weapon, depriving him of the means to fight any future monsters. Lily smiles, kneels down, and taps his sword with her finger, remarking that she'll give him a second swing. She has given him a sword so strong that it will never shatter. A faint glow envelops Jiro's blade, which is now pulsing with holy magic. Jiro doesn't remember the church being capable of something like this. Still, Lily hasn't transformed his sword into a true holy blade. Jiro thanks her for blessing his sword, and she'll take her payment in one slain floor boss monster. With a reliable weapon on hand, Jiro decides to make his way to the boss's room. It's supposedly 10 minutes away, according to him, but based on what Lily experienced, she half-jokingly expects to get to the boss's room in 30 minutes. 3 hours later, they finally arrive. They haven't even started fighting yet, and they're already drenched in sweat. After catching their breath, Lily pushes the massive doors open, and they enter. Not long after, they come upon their foe, the floor boss. Its deep growls could make even the most veteran soldiers tremble, but Jiro finally has a weapon he can use. He won't just match the floor boss, he'll crush it. As the beast prepares to charge, Jiro grips his weapon tight and performs his 8th secret sword technique, Thunderbolt. His strike moves faster than the eye can see, and in an instant, the floor boss is cleaved in two. Still, Jiro is his own harshest critic. He thinks that his attack was sloppy. As the bits and pieces of the floor boss fall around them, Lily wonders if her enhancement just wasn't up to snuff. Jiro reassures her that her enhancement magic was on point. This was the first time he's ever been able to execute this technique without his sword breaking on him. Lily is glad that her earlier bragging didn't turn out to be empty boasting. This helps Jiro confirm that Lily is no ordinary individual. He had his suspicions earlier on, but a priestess like her should be weaker than an archbishop or a cardinal. Though he's never met one before, Lily seems to be just as strong as any high-ranking church official. Jiro remembers her claiming to be older than 20, which he takes to mean that she must be some old granny using magic to conceal her appearance. It wouldn't be the first time, either. Jiro second-guesses his hunch at first, but his experiences these past few months have changed him. The idea sounds so stupid that it just might be true. He has turned into an idiot. Lily asks Jiro if he wants to know the monster he killed, since his poor eyesight means that he doesn't even know what he just cut down. Lily thinks long and hard about how to describe the beast that he just killed, but the words escape her. Eventually, she settles for calling it a horse. Jiro believes her. Lily has something else to say, but she decides not to speak at the last second. She dusts herself off and suggests that they head for the exit. However, before they can, Jiro admits to Lily that he has a god-awful sense of direction. He's searched the floor they're on thoroughly, but even though he thinks the entrance to the next floor is in the door ahead of them, he isn't 100% sure. He welcomes any critique or opposition, but Lily tells him that it's okay. They can freely choose any path to explore together because Lily really loves atlases. It turns out that, due to Lily's sheltered upbringing, she passed the time by reading maps or travel guides, so she embraces any chance to explore. Lily reassures Jiro that he has nothing to fear as long as she's at the helm. Even though Jiro is worrying a lot, he decides to leave it all in her questionably capable hands. Jiro was once tricked by his master to board a passenger ship, only to end up fighting an obscene amount of giant squid monsters. Though Jiro was traumatized by the event, it taught him an important lesson. Whenever he feels like his world is about to end, the only thing that puts him at ease is to go forward. 2 heads are better than 1, and it's even truer in their case. As partners, Jiro and Lily are able to descend an astounding 50 floors within a month. Deeper and deeper into the abyss they go, but when you stare into the abyss stares back. Though they've been heading upwards for over a month, Jiro and Lily have yet to even see a glimpse of the surface. Jiro toils by carting Lily up a slope, and she's worried that she might be heavy. Jiro replies that he considers this a form of training, which is basically saying that she's heavy. Realizing that he said something wrong, Jiro pretends that this is actually the opposite of training, and that he might even be losing muscle by pulling her up. Jiro continues dragging Lily along, who begins to think about what happened to her Holy Knight escorts. Jiro, with ragged breath, says something he wishes he said a long time ago. They might be lost. Lily stares at him with a blank face. Jiro explains that, even though he fell from the 3rd floor, he didn't feel as though the drop was that far. He's been technically climbing upwards for 4 months, with no sign of the exit. He tells Lily that it might be time to face facts. They're both hopelessly lost idiots with less directional sense than a broken twig. Lily looks at Jiro, who is at his wit's end. She asks him if he knows that there are 2 types of people with a poor sense of direction. She points out that the first are those who continue down a genuinely wrong path, and that there is no way that this is them. The whole time they've been traveling, There has never been a time when they disagreed on which path to take. There's no way two people would pick the wrong path 100% of the time. While Lily has a point, Jiro has a feeling that their sense of direction is so bad that they might even defeat such astronomically low chances. Lily reminds Jiro of the second type of those with a poor sense of direction, those who start second-guessing themselves out of anxiety. Lily convinces him that they're on the verge of becoming that type, and that it is in their best interest to continue forging on. Jiro asks her what they'll do if their path ends up going nowhere, and Lily replies that they'll simply return to their original path. Suddenly, a massive worm-like creature burrows from underneath the ground. As Jiro slices it in the shape of chicken cordon bleu, he remarks that Lily raises some damn good points. He trusts her completely, especially since it would do them no good if they just abandoned their path after climbing over 120 floors. Jiro respectfully bows to Lily and thanks her for such a valuable lesson. Lily proudly encourages him to keep on learning from her. Eventually, they come across another fork in the road. At the same time, and without prior discussion, they both decide to go to the right. With their fists raised high, Jiro drags Lily along using a discarded shell. They have shed all doubt and walk their path with certainty. Unfortunately for them, they don't know that the path they're on leads deeper into the labyrinth. Jiro and Lily take a break by gorging on some freshly caught cavefish. While Lily has yet to adapt to the flavors of the cave, Jiro considers the water an absolute delicacy. Though neither could start a fire, thanks to Lily, their living conditions have substantially improved. After their meal, Lily takes Jiro's hands and washes them clean using her purification magic. Lily decides to take a quick nap, while Jiro decides to continue training. Jiro couldn't have beaten the prior floor boss without Lily's help, and the opponents he'll be facing will only get stronger as time goes on. Lily overhears him and his tone of disappointment. She wonders if she did something unnecessary by helping him, even though she did it out of the goodness out of her heart. If there's one thing Lily is good at, it's emotional manipulation. Lily dips her hand in the watering hole and asks him if he'd like to have some delicious swamp water. Jiro apologizes for thinking only of himself and explains that as a swordsman, he tends to think of what he can do on his own before thinking of someone else's support. Lily reveals that she was just pulling his leg. It's fun to see Jiro squirm and attempt to use formal language. Lily just loves teasing younger men, perhaps in more ways than one. Jiro wants to put the matter to rest, so Lily falls down in her cot and takes a nap. Jiro sighs, and he wanders off a short distance away while thinking about how troublesome Lily has been. He thinks that he might be in love. Jiro remembers his master's words to not get involved with women, and as a man who's been divorced twice, his master believed he was right. Back then, Jiro thought to himself that his master must be the problem if he'd been divorced twice. He said that out loud, which prompted his master to work him even harder. Still, Jiro respected his master's warnings, and to some degree, he's been avoiding relationships with women. That is, until now. He was alone for 3 months until Lily came along, and ever since then, they'd been each other's sole companions. Jiro can't help but start seriously considering how much he likes her. Jiro has never felt this way before. 3 years ago, Jiro's master took a slap to the face, prompting him to take a journey to some hot springs alone. He advised Jiro to see an optician, and they went their separate ways. Left on his own, Jiro was often treated as his master's apprentice, and there were many who wanted to challenge him to test their strength. There was one girl whom he dueled and formed a friendship with, but it went nowhere, romantically speaking. Jiro just never had a chance before, but now that chance has finally come. Jiro recalls how she touches his hands every after meals, which gets his stomach acting all funny. He focuses on meditating instead, which he can do thanks to a barrier that Lily set up. Jiro decides not to tell Lily his feelings given the circumstances. He resolves to only tell her after they've left the labyrinth, and only after exchanging letters for a year. Jiro closes his eyes and lets his energy flow through his veins. He hones it sharper, stronger, and faster. Suddenly, it hits him. What if Lily is 80 years old? The power of a member of the clergy peaks in their advanced years, and he deems it impossible for a girl her age to be that strong. He's never clearly seen her face either, since he doesn't have his glasses. The possibility is strong that she's just 80 years old. Jiro's mind is clear, and he feels that he's arrived at the truth. Lily asks him what he's talking about. Jiro jumps back and asks Lily why she's here. She replies that she was worried he'd be cold once he decided to go to sleep. She raises her finger and casts a coat of warm magic around him, which she says will last 10 hours. Puzzled, Jiro asks her how she used her magic without touching his hand, like she always does with her sanitation magic. Lily says in a matter-of-fact way that she doesn't need to touch him to use her magic. Jiro confronts her and asks why she always touches his hands when casting her sanitation magic after their meals. He wants to know, even if she's 80 years old. And so, the tale of two idiots continues. Kraha wakes up from a nightmare involving Jiro. It's been 4 months since she was separated from Jiro. Her daily life has remained unchanged, and she's heard no news about Jiro either. It's almost as if it were just a dream. The only thing changing are the seasons. During her morning jog, she runs into Holland. He's out observing his subordinates, who were complaining that they'd gotten fat, but they fell behind. Holland takes a seat while Kraha does some cool-down stretches. Holland notices that Kraha is covered in sweat. He asks how far she's run, and she explains her normal training routine every morning. Today, she plans to run uphill for 10 laps. Holland is pleased that she's training on her own initiative, though he warns her not to train too much. It'd be bad if she irreversibly injured herself. Suddenly, they notice some church wagons rolling through the town. Holland has noticed that they seem more active as of late. Holland wonders if the church has found out about that incident. He noticed that they started showing up in greater numbers last month. Though Kraha tries to reason that it just must be some kingdom knights, Holland wonders if he's just overthinking the situation, but he sure hopes that this doesn't turn into trouble. Before Kraha can come clean about what she did, Holland waves to his 2 children, who have finally caught up to him. While Holland deals with his kids, he remarks that he can't help but sometimes be scared of beautiful things, knowing that they'll be ruined one day. He apologizes for saying something weird, and he wishes Kraha luck on the rest of her morning training. He's sure that one day, she'll be a better adventurer than he ever was. That evening, Kraha meets Eru, one of the church's holy knights. Kraha serves them some tea, and they take a seat on her dining table. Kraha wonders about the sudden surprise visit. Eru suddenly asks Kraha to tell her anything that might have happened to her party. When she asks what she means by this, Eru reminds her that Future Plan has given up on any future raids into the abyss. Kraha knew this deep down, of course. Eru asked Godech what happened on the raid, but he simply told her that he had given up. Eru wants to know exactly what happened there. What could possibly compel an S-rank party to abandon a raid after only going down there once? She finds it extremely odd, since they didn't lose a single party member either. Hearing this rocks Kraha to her core. There's no way that could be true unless Jiro wasn't registered with the party to begin with. Eru would understand if they'd abandoned their raid if they suffered crippling losses, but that isn't the case. She assumes that they ran into trouble of unknown origin, just like they did. She wants to know why Godech gave up. Kraha realizes that it must be because Godech had accomplished what he set out to do. But that begs the question, for what reason did he have to kill Jiro? Kraha asks Eru what kind of trouble the Holy Knights ran into, and she explains that during their recent descent into the abyss, they lost track of one of their saints, Lily, after being caught in a teleportation trap. Eru hates to make excuses, but she senses that there's something abnormal about the abyss. Their first expedition into the abyss was extremely cautious, and they were more on guard than usual. Despite this, when they walked over a fated teleportation circle, it didn't activate until Kraha stepped on it. It almost seems like the trap was meant for her. Kraha finds this unlikely, as virtually all dungeon traps are naturally occurring and aren't complex enough to target someone specific. Eru can deal with failure, but the fact that she doesn't even know what triggered that failure in the first place is what irks her. She wants to know what happened down there to Kraha and her party. Why are the other members of Future Plan refusing to talk to her? Why did Godech give up? And who is the dead friend she told Lily about? She wants an answer straight from Kraha's mouth. What does she know? And what secret is she hiding? Kraha encounters a beautiful person, but she can't tell if they are a man or a woman. The person, sensing what's on her mind, teasingly wonders what they could indeed be. The Promem gang is going to be insane. They ask if they can sit beside Kraha, and she lets them. After sitting in silence for a few minutes, Kraha remembers that Eru was also quite beautiful when she met her last night. Maybe she is bi. The person sitting next to her suddenly slides in and asks what's the best thing on the menu, and Kraha recommends the Hamburg steak for first-time visitors. They ask what the best item would be if it wasn't her first time here, which gives Lily a hard time. She thinks about it for a while, and she decides that the daily special would be the best thing for regular patrons. It contains 3 whole pork cutlets and unlimited servings of rice. Realizing that the person might not have that big of an appetite, Kraha tries to dissuade her from ordering that. However, that's precisely what they wanted to hear. They raise their hand and orders 2 specials, which makes the waitress quiver in fear and the owners glare in determination. They prepare their pride and joy, the chef's special, which has struck down many challengers before. It's enough to fill the belly of any hungry customer, and it is the culmination of the owner's love, tenacity, and skill. Kraha warns them that they're insane for ordering 2 portions, and if they leave anything on the plate, the owners will get really upset. Soon enough, the owners plop down 2 huge servings of the chef's special. The portions are so massive that Goku is already warming up to tap in if she can't finish it. The 2 chef owners high-five each other for a job well done, but when they hear the chopsticks break, they spin around. The person reassures Kraha that they're a glutton. Something of this caliber won't faze her. To the owner's shock and awe, they devour the entire 2 servings of the chef's special. The owners admit total defeat. The person asks Kraha why she's only eating noodles, and she replies that she doesn't have much of an appetite. They smile and remark that Kraha seems to be a nice person. They thank her for telling her about the chef's special, and they settle their bill. They reassure her that, in one way or another, they'll settle things themselves. While Lily and Jiro are busy thumb wrestling, they suddenly come across a strange person. They debate about what their intentions might be, but the person reassures them that they're not suspicious. Their name is Eunice, and they're not up to anything shady. Lily and Jiro definitely think that they're shady. Eunice joins them, and they are put up to speed about how the 2 ended up down here. Lily and Jiro, on the other hand, are more focused on their fire. To think that a fire would finally come to their humble little camp, it's like a dream come true. Eunice wonders if these 2 are idiots. Eunice asks them not to go to sleep while they're not done talking yet. Lily and Jiro are too lazy, but they change their tune when they learn that Eunice knows their names. Eunice explains that they are the Archmage of the Stars, a lean, mean, one-man rescuing machine. Lily and Jiro have heard of their names before. Eunice is a bit surprised that, given how close their ages are, they don't know more about each other. After all, Jiro is the slayer of the toxic dragon, while Lily is known as the island-saving saint. Jiro and Lily stare at each other like they just discovered fire. Yunis finds it hard to believe that they didn't know that after being together for so long, and he asks what they've been doing all this time. Jiro replies that they've been catching fish, drinking water, and thumb wrestling. Yunis thinks that sounds like a lot of fun. It turns out that all three of them are idiots. Jiro asks Yunis how they got down here, and they reply that they just used the magic circle that teleported Lily from the 4th floor, and they've been following their trail ever since. Yunis finds it impressive that Lily and Jiro aren't just surviving but going deeper and deeper. Lily seems a bit pleased with herself, but Jiro is less so. He realizes that they've been descending the whole time. Lily smirks and tells him to treat this as a learning experience. Still, Lily has been agreeing with Jiro this whole time, and they should both take responsibility for their actions. These words sting, but Jiro realizes that he was the one who started descending first. If Lily realizes this, he might just have to grovel on his knees. Just as Lily puts 2 and 2 together, Jiro interrupts her and asks Yunis if they're here to rescue them. Yunis is there to rescue them, but he had assumed that they simply came across a boss they could not beat and were stranded as a result. He didn't expect to find them so deep down. He asked Jiro if he was planning to conquer this dungeon, but Jiro tearfully admits that that's not why they're stuck here. They just have an awful sense of direction. Yunis nearly has to clean his ears and asks him to repeat that. Jiro explains that they've been trying to leave the abyss, but due to their poor sense of direction, they've been wandering deeper instead. Yunis says nothing at first, which is just as bad as being made fun of. Yunis reveals that they know a thing or two about the two of them. Jiro, the swordsman, slayed a toxic dragon after it tried to dissolve a whole forest. Lily, the saint, protected an entire island from being sunk by a torrential storm. The question that Yunis wants to ask is if they've heard about them. Jiro and Lily know very little about Yunis aside from his moniker as the Archmage of the Stars, but Lily recalls that Yunis invented a new type of magic. Yunis tries to explain themselves with the same modesty that Jiro and Lily used, but Jiro just wants him to cut to the chase. Simply put, Yunis' power is derived from the stars. Still, Yunis is still an Archmage, one of the most powerful magic users in the country. Jiro's heart is about to burst. He just wants Yunis to get it over with. Yunis gives Jiro a thumbs up and admits that their power has been reduced by 80%. Yunis is useless. Jiro falls to his knees, a useless swordsman with a poor sense of direction, a member of the clergy with a poor sense of direction, and a mage with virtually no magic power. The 3 idiots have combined forces. Jiro tells Yunis that they've been trapped here for the last 3 weeks, and he brings them to their main obstacle, a huge door that just won't budge, no matter how many times they say open sesame. Jiro and Lily tried everything to get it to open, but it's as tight as a drum. However, they notice that there seems to be a magic circle carved onto the door, something that Yunis can easily transcribe. They use a simple magic spell to fill the grooves with water, then place the sheet of water on the floor, allowing Lily to analyze it more closely. Lily dips her hands into the water. They were seemingly all brought here together by coincidence, but she's not so sure anymore. The magic circle is apocryphal in nature, and there are signs that an apocryphal beast is also present. The labyrinth therein is not a naturally occurring one. It was built by someone else, someone linked to the fallen king.